She thought she was forgotten. After years of sacrifice, of cleaning, of love, Dolores Mayfield was left in a cold, lifeless room with nothing but beige walls and a single bed. Her son, Jason, thought she'd quietly fade away, a burden too heavy to carry. But Dolores wasn't ready to disappear. She wasn't done. This is the story of how she took back her life, her power, and her dignity, one calculated move at a time. Once, Jason had been the light of her life. She had raised him on love and sacrifice, her hands calloused from long hours of hard work, her heart worn thin from the constant stretching of a mother's love. She thought the love she poured into him would come back around when she needed it most. But Jason had other plans. When her husband passed, Dolores had nothing left but Jason. She cleaned houses, sacrificed meals when money was tight, and even sold her wedding ring to buy him a graduation suit. She did everything for him, without asking for anything in return. And yet, now, at her most vulnerable, she was treated like an inconvenience, a burden to be cast aside. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She didn't know it then, but Jason and his wife, Danielle, had already made their decision. They had spoken to a lawyer behind her back, and without her consent, they placed her in a nursing home. They didn't care how it would feel to her. They didn't care about the years she had spent taking care of them, the sacrifices she made. None of it mattered anymore. She was just another problem to be dealt with. Jason, with his rehearsed concern, arrived with Danielle one evening, bringing soup, talking about old documents, and pretending to care. They were quick to tell her how hard it must be to maintain a house at her age. She was confused. Was this really her son, the boy she raised? The next day, they invited her out to lunch, just the three of them. They told her she needed a break, that they were going to spoil her. She didn't suspect a thing. But when they arrived at the nursing home, everything changed. Jason hugged her like he meant it. Danielle kissed her cheek. Then, without warning, they were gone. Just like that, she was abandoned in a sterile room. A stranger in her own life. She sat there, her mind racing. They had lied, manipulated, and stolen everything from her. But Dolores wasn't going to fade away. She had a plan. For the first time in weeks, she asked for a pen and a notebook. And that's when she began to write. Not poetry, not prayers, but facts, dates, account numbers, names. She wrote it all down, like a battle plan, preparing for the fight of her life. She wasn't confused. She wasn't dead. She was alive. And she was going to make them pay. The nursing home's staff thought they had won. They thought she was too old, too frail to fight back. They didn't know that Dolores had fought battles before, against breast cancer, against loneliness, against life itself. This wasn't the end of her story. No, it was just the beginning. Her lawyer, Monica, hadn't heard from her in years, but she never took her off the list. Monica wasn't about to let her down now. When Dolores finally reached her, they put their plan into motion. It started with the bank accounts, the forged documents, the power of attorney that Jason had tricked her into signing. Monica filed an emergency motion, and soon, Dolores was out of that nursing home and back in control of her life. But she didn't stop there. She had one last thing to do. One final, poetic act of vengeance. Monica filed a case against Jason for elder exploitation. They froze his mortgage account, and Dolores set in motion the sale of the house she had once cared for. She had made them think she was weak, but in truth, she was just biding her time. And the best part, they would never see her coming. She moved out of the nursing home with quiet resolve. No goodbyes, just a bag of clothes, and a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in years. The next step was to make sure Jason knew exactly what he had done. She didn't need to see the look on his face. She could already feel the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. As the sale of her home progressed, Dolores watched from a distance. The young couple who bought it loved the garden, the soul of the house. Jason never showed up for the inspection, never protested the sale. Dolores had won, but that wasn't all. She had one last piece of the puzzle to put in place. With the money from the sale, she bought the house next door, the one that had once been her dream home. She paid in full, no mortgage, no debt, just freedom. She moved in with pride, with a sense of victory that could never be taken away. Every morning, she sat on her porch with sweet tea, watching Jason's life fall apart. She planted roses, bright red ones, as if to remind him of what he had lost. But Dolores wasn't doing this for revenge. Not really. It wasn't about the house, the money, or the property. It was about reclaiming her peace, about showing Jason that he could never erase her, no matter how hard he tried. Tyler, her grandson, had become a constant presence in her life again. He would visit, help with the garden, and laugh with her like they had never been apart. His presence filled the empty spaces Jason had left behind. And when Jason finally came to her door, broken and desperate, Dolores didn't flinch. She didn't offer comfort. She had already moved on. He had crossed a line, and she wasn't about to let him back in. Dolores's final act of justice came when she updated her will. Jason would inherit nothing. Instead, everything would go to a fund for women like her, women who had been discarded by their families, who had been treated like burdens. She gave everything she had to those who needed it most, ensuring that no one else would have to feel the way she had felt. When Jason found out, it was too late. He had already lost. He could never take back what he had done. The neighbors watched as Jason's life crumbled, and Dolores smiled, knowing that she had reclaimed her dignity and peace. Her story wasn't just about revenge. It was about legacy. It was about making sure no one could erase the love she had given, the sacrifices she had made. She had built a life on her own terms, and now she was free to live it as she pleased. And as she sat on her porch, Tyler by her side, Dolores knew that peace wasn't something you wait for. It's something you fight for.